Right, so overcalling. Now, overcalling is one of my favourite lessons. Now, the reason for that is, so far, the bidding I've been talking to you about has been what's known as constructive bidding. Bidding where we are building things together. I have this many points, I have this kind of hand, balanced, unbalanced. I have this shape, I like your suit, I dislike your suit, yada yada. It's all constructive in the sense that we are communicating with our partner in an attempt to have a conversation. Now, unfortunately, life isn't quite like that in real bridge, in that there are 4 people who are able to bid, not just 2 of you. What that means is the opponents are entitled to bid as well. What that does is it cuts your communication lines, because instead of you bidding 1 heart, if they bid 2 spades, that stops you from bidding 1 heart. So there are 2 different styles of bidding. There are constructive bidding, friendly, nice, have a chat, and there is destructive bidding. I'm going to get in your way. Now, some of you will like this style of bidding, me included, and the reason for that is ruining their good hands seems more fun than expressing your own. I appreciate that's a bit sadistic, but it's really good fun. You'll understand why in a minute when you get into it, because if you can bid and your partner can support you, especially when your partner can support you, you can really upset their bidding. 1 club, 1 spade stops them from bidding 1 heart, for example. 1 club, 3 spades stops them from bidding anything, basically. So destructive bidding is incredibly powerful, and as bridge has evolved as a game, just like every other sport and everything evolves, bridge has evolved as a game, and over time the language has changed, the bidding has changed, and it's become more and more aggressive, and even to this day it's becoming more and more and more and more destructive. It's all about stopping the opponents from doing all the stuff I've been telling you about in the last few weeks, stopping them from being able to express their hand. So overcalling is when the opponents have opened the bidding. And what this means is the whole nature of the hand has changed. When the opponents open the bidding, you have learned something. What you have learned is that one of the opponents has a better than average hand. What this means is it's more likely that they want to have a constructive bidding sequence. Because they've opened the bidding, it's quite likely they want to respond, their partner to respond, and then they do their second bid and they tell them what they've got, and then they decide whether they want to be in game or not, yada yada. So the fact that the opponents have opened the bidding is your clue that you should try and upset the bidding, essentially upset the apple cart. Because they've opened the bidding, which means more often than not, they want the bidding to have kind of a communication line between the 2 of them. So if you can overcall, can get in their way, that's often a good thing to do. Now, being an overcaller is different to being an opener. Being an opener, you need good hands. Being an overcaller, all you need are good suits. It's a different style of bidding. So what you have learned about the bidding styles in the last few weeks are not relevant to being an overcaller. It's not about having an opening hand, it's about having a long suit, and a good suit at that, preferably. Now, the idea behind this is if you don't have the points to back your bid up, you do have the trumps to back your bid up. So if you do end up as declarer, let's say you bid something crazy over their bid, if you do end up as declarer, you won't go sailing off. Because if you go sailing off, you might lose more points than you stood to gain by just sitting there and letting them bid. So being an overcaller is a very different thing to being a responder or an opener. It's incredibly different. So it's essentially a completely different bidding kind of strategy. So you must be aware of who you are. If you're the opening bidder, you need X, Y, and Z to bid. If you're the overcaller, you need something entirely different. It's very important that you know the 2 things. And the responder's different again, as we've seen. So being an overcaller, what you need is a good suit. A 5-card suit or longer of good quality. Now, good quality is something that's subjective, isn't it? Is Jack 10 to 5 a good suit? Not really, but some might argue it is. Is Ace King Queen to 5 a good suit? Yes, because everyone would agree that. But there is a point where it becomes grey. Is Ace Queen to 5 a good suit? Is Ace Jack to 5? You start to get to a point where you're feeling a bit iffy. The way I would like to kind of quantify a good suit is if you're happy for your partner to lead that suit, I would consider that a good enough suit. So probably 2 honours is about the bare minimum, but again, I don't want to draw a strict line because I want you to be as aggressive as you can be. So something funny about whenever I bring people through the lessons is that whenever they start playing duplicate bridge, people can tell who I brought through because they can tell how aggressive their style is. Because it's winning bridge. I promise you it's winning bridge. Because by putting the opponents off, essentially you're going to win in the long run by stopping them from scoring their points. That's essentially what it is. When they have the good hands, you ruin it. That's really what it's about. So I don't want to make it a strict overcalling requirement. If you feel like overcalling and your suit's a bit dodgy, feel free. Be alright. But obviously there's got to be some understanding. You don't want to be bidding 5 to the 6, if that's possible, just about. You know, you've got to have some decent cards in that suit, just in case you end up as declarer. I appreciate a good suit is subjective. I would say 2 honours as a minimum. So Queen Jack is probably bottom of the barrel for me. But you know, Queen 10 9, same kind of thing. Now, the reason you need 5 cards in a suit rather than 4 cards, as a responder or an opener, you only need 4 cards to mention a suit. Whereas as an overcaller, you require 5 cards in a suit. The reason for that is all based on the statistics of having a fit with your partner. When you have a 5-card suit, you have a fit with your partner a considerable amount of time, somewhere in the 70-ish% region. When you have a 4-card suit, you have a fit with your partner somewhere in the 30-ish% region. They're not exact figures, but they're ballpark. And the reason for that is a 5-card suit, finding 3 cards from your partner is quite likely. Finding 4 cards from your partner is not as likely. So there is a categorical rule with being an overcaller. You must, underlined, bold font, size 100 font, must have a 5-card suit. If you are bidding a suit, it must be 5 cards in length. I don't care if it's ace, king, queen, jack, that is only 4 cards. Must be a 5-card suit. The theory basically is all boils down to the mathematics of finding a fit. If you haven't got a 5-card suit, you can't bid as an overcaller, asterisk until I introduce you to something else later. But for now, if you haven't got a 5-card suit, you must basically pass. That's the be all and end all. You might have an opening hand, but without a 5-card suit being an overcaller, you cannot bid. If you're interested, an opening hand, when your opponent's open, if you don't have a 5-card suit, that's known as a trapped hand. A hand that would have opened the bidding, but now can't bid because the opponents have opened there first. Unfortunate, very frustrating, but that's life, I'm afraid.
Is it alright to bid the minor suits?
Yes, it's okay to bid the minor suits, and in fact we're not as upset with bidding the minor suits as an overcaller because we don't expect to play the contract, we're just trying to ruffle their feathers a bit, yeah. Now, bidding as an overcaller, as I say, it's all about suit quality and suit length. The longer and stronger your suit, the more involved you should want to get. It's not about hand quality, it's about suit quality. So, and suit length, I suppose. So to bid as an overcaller, what are the points requirements? Again, I don't want to put down a strict rule. As an opener and as a responder, I want rules because that is constructive. You don't want to bend those rules too much. As an overcaller, you're trying to mess them about. So stretching here and there isn't too bad. I appreciate there obviously has got to be a line somewhere. You don't want to bid with 0 points, but you know, don't be too glued on the numbers I'm going to give you. If it's a point short but you like your hand, go for it. So to bid as the overcaller, as I said, you must have a 5-card suit. It must be of reasonable quality. And you want the same points you need to respond at that level. So to respond at the 1 level, you need 6 points. To overcall at the 1 level, you need 6 points. To respond at the 2 level, you need 10 points. To overcall at the 2 level, you need 10 points. There's not often a shortcut in bridge, especially with bidding, so that's kind of a bit of a grace in the sense that you don't have to memorise 2 different sets of numbers. The responsive values at the 1 and 2 level are equivalent to the overcalling values at the 1 and 2 level. There are some who teach you need 8 points to overcall at the 1 level and 12 points to overcall at the 2 level. I adapt a more aggressive stance and put it in line with the responder's points. So just be aware, if you play against other people who aren't in this room, they might say, you can't bid with only 6 points. You can do what you like. Don't let people tell you you can't bid. If you want to bid, bid. But be aware that you are adopting this is an aggressive system. This is just basically what wins. That's what I'm teaching at you. So what I would do with those East cards is over there 1 heart, I would bid 1 spade. 1 spade promises 5 cards, decent quality, again, subjective, and 6 or more points. Okay? I would bid 1 spade, not because that messes them about too much, but because it tells our partner what I have, and this gets greatly rewarded when your partner can support your spades, because suddenly you can start bullying them in the bidding. For example, let's just say theoretically, it goes 2 hearts, 3 spades. I'll come to what they do in a minute, but they might bid 3 spades with some spades with you. Suddenly you are starting to bully them out of the bidding because the power of spades is quite magnificent when you get to the bidding. It really pushes the opponents about. So now North has the option. Do they pass and defend spades, which they don't want to do, or do they bid 4 hearts, which they may or may not want to do? They basically potentially have a poisonous choice. Choose your poison. Do you want to bid too high, play in your contract, or do you want to defend our suit, which you don't want to do? They don't want to do either of those things. They want to play in their little 2 heart contract probably. But they can't, because you bullied them. So it's an aggressive stance, and it's trying to basically take advantage of having shape and having a long suit, having the trumps to back you up because you don't really have the points. Now, that being said, when you are the overcaller, if you do end up playing the contract, don't necessarily think it's a failure if you don't make your contract. We're talking about the opponents having more points than us. So what that means is they were expecting to make their 2-heart contract, let's say, theoretically. So for them to make 2 hearts, they were going to get 110 points. There or thereabouts, 140 if they got an extra one, yada yada. So if we play in 3 spades and we go 1 off, we've lost 50 in place of them gaining 110. So it is a net gain by us going off in a contract. There's a very well-known saying in bridge, which is 1 off is good bridge, which is completely stupid if you think about it. What do you mean 1 off is good bridge? Surely you bid too much. Yes and no. If you have managed to pinch the contract from them and thus gone 1 down instead of them playing the contract and making their score, that's a good result for you, isn't it? Lose 50 in place of losing 100 and something. That's the theory behind overcalling. So if you do go off in your contract, don't feel bad that you have failed. Obviously, if you can make your contract, or do your best to. But if you do go down 1 or 2, it's not the end of the world, because they were probably going to make their contract, and therefore you haven't lost/gained a great deal. Okay? It's all about the kind of mathematics behind the point scoring. So going off in your overcall contract isn't necessarily bad. Okay? We're not trying to make everything we bid. We're just trying to push them about in the bidding. The theory, really, if we go back to human psychology, what will almost always happen is North will think, oh, I'm not playing in your spades, I'm bidding 4 hearts. And then sometimes they go down in their contract. So not only have you stopped them from making their 2 hearts, you've encouraged them to bid a contract they couldn't make. That's where you really win, because you've turned a negative score into a positive score.
Do you only do this at the 1 level? I mean, if they started with, say, 2 hearts?
If I invert these suits, and if it was 1 spade, and we have instead that, you can overcall at the 2 level.
Right.
Would you overcall 2 hearts here? Strictly speaking, we're a point shy, because you want 10 points to overcall the 2 level. Would I overcall 2 hearts? Probably, because that's just, ace king to 5 is a pretty good suit. Obviously, if you give extra cards, your chance of a fit goes up astronomically. With a 6-card suit, your chance of a fit is high 80% time now. So with that hand, I would certainly bid 2 hearts. The longer and stronger your suit is, the more it's about. It's not really about hand quality as such. So yes, you can overcall at the 2 level, and you should do so, but you require a couple more points, basically, or some more length and strength in your suit. Okay?
What if you're the 3rd person in the bidding round?
You can still overcall, yeah. So if it happens to be, let's say, 1 spade, pass, 2 spades, now you've got to be aware that they are pushing the bidding up and up and up and up. So you now have to bid 3 hearts as a minimum. Bidding at the 3 levels an overcaller, first of all, it's pretty rare. And secondly, you want about an opening hand, there or thereabouts. You want about 6 points for the 1 level, 10-ish for the 2 level, and 12-ish or more for the 3 level. And you would really like a 6-card suit. But it's quite rare to be overcalling at the 3 level as your first bid. Of course, they might have responded 1 no trump, or 2 clubs, or 2 diamonds, in which case you could bid 2 hearts. So it's all about where you fit in the bidding. But yes, you can overcall as the final person as well. Okay? What you require to be an overcaller is essentially the opponents open the bidding. If the opponents have opened the bidding, you are an overcaller. Wherever you sit in that pattern, whether you can bid your suit or not, comes later. But yes, you are an overcaller. Now, bidding an overcall is fairly, I would like to think, straightforward. Long suit of decent quality, roughly some points. That's all you really require. Just trying to mess them about. By the way, it's quite surprising how much damage overcalling does to their bidding. It's surprising because you push them up 1, which pushes their partner up 1, and suddenly they're 2 levels too high, potentially. So just be aware that overcalling, although it doesn't always work, is quite a powerful thing to be able to do. So if you're on the fence, I would encourage you to go for it because it messes them about. Okay? Which I like doing. Now, responding to an overcall essentially follows the same pattern. It's all about suit quality and suit length and not about hand quality. It follows the same theory. We are being a destructive bidding partnership. Our partner has made a destructive styled bid. We should follow suit. Therefore, if you have, let's say South opens a bidding 1 diamond, our partner overcalls 1 spade, and they bid, let's say, 1 no trump. If you have a fit for your partner, you should tell them straight away. Let's say we have some rubbish like that. So there is something known as the total trumps principle. Now I'm not going to bore you with it, it's again more mathsy stuff to do with how many tricks you take. But the theory is, if you have an 8-card fit and you declare with that suit as trumps, you will get very close to an 8-trick, what's the word, 8-trick contract. So if you have an 8-card fit, you will take close to 8 tricks. You won't always make 8, sometimes you make 7, sometimes you make 9, but more often than not, with 8 trumps, you get quite close to 8 tricks. Obviously, if you had 8 trumps and literally 0 points, you probably only make 5 or 6. But the theory is, with 8 trumps, you get close to 8 tricks. So there's something known as the level of the fit. What that means is, if you have a 8-card fit, you should bid for 8 tricks, because that is a reasonable bet. And again, I can't guarantee it, but it's a reasonable bet. If you have a 9-card fit, you should bid for 9 tricks. Notice, I'm not talking about points here, I'm talking about length of trumps only. Again, this is an aggressive, destructive style of bidding. So with this east hand, our partner has promised us how many spades for their bid? At least 5. So we have at least 8 spades between the two of us, which means bidding for 8 tricks is sensible. It's not guaranteed to make, but it's a sensible thing to do. So we should bid what? 2 spades. Do we have any points? No. Is that the idea? No. It's not about making 2 spades. Whether 2 spades makes or not is irrelevant. Look at what South now has to do. Do they want to bid their 5-4 at the 3 level? Probably not. So South's got a problem, haven't they? If they bid 3, let's say 3 clubs, they're already at the 3 level, which potentially is too high. They probably want to rebid 2 clubs, or 2 diamonds, or 2 hearts. We don't know what they want us to rebid, but we do know we've impacted them. We've guaranteed impact to them, haven't we? Because of our bid has pushed them up. And it all started with our partner's bid. You can see how you work in tandem as essentially this destructive force between the two of you. You can only do this if you can agree your partner's suit. If we couldn't agree our partner's suit, the whole theory breaks down. It's all about length of trumps and not about strength of hand. Very different to being the opening side. The opening side is all about having the sufficient points.
If you've got 3, you'd bid 2 spades, irrelevant of how many points you
Correct. Correct. And in fact, the weaker you are, the more you want to bid, which I appreciate is the opposite of the truth. But the weaker you are, the more you should want to bid, because the stronger they are. So if you have literally 0 points, they're going to make a game. So make it hard for them to find out which game. If you have, basically, the fewer and fewer points you give me, the more I want to bid. I would argue with this hand, I am much, much closer to bidding 3 spades than I am passing. Because of the nature of the bidding, the style of the bidding. They're going to make game easy, aren't they? They're going to walk game. They can probably make a slam. So if we can make their lives as awkward as possible, they might let us play in spades, which will be a fantastic victory for us. If we have spades as trumps, we're going to win. Okay, we're not going to make our contract, but that's irrelevant, because they were going to make 620 or whatever. Hello? All right?
So if you had 4 spades, so you had 9 between you, would you go straight to 3 spades?
I would indeed. I'm glad you asked that question. It's as if I prompted you to ask me that. Yes, exactly that. Level of the fit says, our partner has 5, we have 4, that's 9, we should bid for 9 tricks. Are we going to make 9 tricks? No. Does that matter? No. Because they are now certain to make game. The thing is, the more and more trumps you have, the fewer and fewer they have of your suit. So the worse and worse your hands are defensively. If you end up defending, let's say, 4 hearts, your hand's worth 0 tricks. Nothing. If you end up playing in spades, your hand is actually, well, I suppose you've got 5 hearts, that's unlikely, but you get my point. But if you play in spades, your hand is actually decent, based on your trump length. Okay, yes, it's not good because it's a rubbish hand, but it's somewhat decent. Okay? Yes?
If you have just 1 spade, but you have a reasonably powerful hand,
Mm-hmm.
can you at that point introduce something else, or?
So it's an interesting question, because there's 2 schools of thought here. If you have a misfit for your partner, the theory of overcalling is breaking down. Because with a misfit for your partner, it's likely that the opponents also have a misfit. And when the hand is a misfit, you don't want to declare. Because if there is a misfit, he who declares loses. When there is a fit, he who declares wins. That's the theory. So if you have a misfit but a decent hand, you shouldn't really be getting involved in the bidding. Your partner's bid of 1 spade has put me off massively with my East cards. If they bid 1 heart, it will be a very different hand. Our hand hasn't changed, but their bid has. So with a misfit, really, you shouldn't be getting involved. If you have something exceptional, like a really good 6 card, really you want 7 suit, a really exceptional hand, yes, you can bid. But more often than not, you shouldn't be, unless it really is self-sustaining, that suit. Something like ace, king, queen to 6 as a minimum, really. If you do have a fit, you're entitled to mention your own suit if you want, with the thought of, I'll just go back to theirs if they don't like mine, that's fine. But bidding when you don't have a fit because you don't like their suit is not good, because it means that it's likely they don't like yours either, because it's a misfit hand. So with this hand, I would pass. Sad that my partner has bid the 1 suit I can't help them with. But now the whole hand, the whole theory behind the hand is breaking down. It's become a misfit hand, which means I do not want to be involved. Okay? So, level of the fit really does go, it's linear. If you have 3 trumps, you can support to the 2 level. If you have 4 trumps, you can support to the 3 level. If you have 5 trumps, you can go to the 4 level, and so on and so forth. The weaker you are, the more you should want to do it, which is the opposite of what's actually going to happen. You're going to look at your hand with 5 small trumps and 3 points and go, surely I'm not bidding 4 spades here. The answer is yes, you are. Because if your hand is rubbish, their hands are good, they can make game, which means you can afford to go lots off. It's a sacrificial bid. It's all about the points. If they can make 420 and you can only give them 100 by going off in your contract, you have won big time. Okay? That's the theory. Very different style bidding to being the people who expect to make contracts. Now there is one exceptional, and I really want to stress this is an exceptional case.
You have to know it.
Not really, you can ignore me if you want. So there is the, probably 1 in 50, somewhere in that region, where the overcallers actually have game on themselves. Now what this requires is the person who opened the bidding, the opponent who opened the bidding, to have a minimum opening hand, 15 or fewer, the responder to the opening bidder to have basically nothing, and the opponents, you guys, the overcallers, to have everything else. For you to have 25 points and the opponents having opened the bidding is quite rare. So just kind of take this with a pinch of salt. You guys having game on is pretty rare. That doesn't mean you never bid game. You might bid 4 spades because you've got 10 spades between the 2 of you. Are you going to make it? Who knows? But it doesn't matter. Whereas bidding game expecting to make it is quite a rare thing. Okay, so just be aware, pretty rare. Now you can potentially have game on, so it's worth covering somewhat that there is a possibility, albeit slim, of game. So you follow the same principles. You go back to, if you like, somewhat constructive bidding, in that you follow the same principles as the opening side, in that you want 25 points for game. So you sort of put your less aggressive coat back on, or cap, if you will, and you actually think, actually, we might have game on here. So, but again, I want to stress this is pretty rare. So with these East cards, we've got 15 points. Our partner has overcalled 2 diamonds, so they promise us how many points?
10.
10 or more. So therefore, we can make game. What game do you want to be in when we have a minor fit?
No trumps.
No trumps. So if we think we can make game, what should we bid? 3 trumps. Right, now I want to stress again, this is rare, okay? So you won't often do this, but if your partner's overcall happens to lead you to the belief you have enough for game, you can bid game. But it doesn't happen very often, okay? But it's worth covering. Just if you have a really good hand, like 15 or so points or 20 or so points, very, very exceptionally rarely, you can just bid game, okay? And of course, if they'd overcalled hearts, we prefer hearts to no trumps, so therefore we would bid what? 4 hearts. Notice this is not following the level of the fit. Level of the fit would say 5 hearts plus 4 hearts is 9 hearts, which means we should be bidding for 9 tricks, which is 3 hearts, isn't it? The difference here is we have such a good hand, we actually think game is going to make. So we're bidding game, not to mess around with their bidding, but because we actually think we can make it. But it's really rare. You do level of the fit probably 95+% of the time. The level of fit is exactly that. They overcall, you add your number of trumps to their minimum, which is 5, and bid for that number of tricks. Yes?
Just to jump back,
Yes.
you had them bidding
2 diamonds.
2 diamonds.
Yep.
say you didn't have the jack of spades, you had a couple of little spades and your jack was sitting somewhere else. Would you still bid no trumps, not with any knowing whether you have any cover at all?
No, I wouldn't. I would bid something conventional. If you're interested, what I would do is bid their suit, asking my partner for a stopper. But that's going sort of towards the end of year 2. But no, I understand your point, and there is some concern. But I would ask my partner. But by bidding their suit, I'd be showing a strong hand. But don't worry about that for now. But I will get to that, of course. Right. Now I'm just going to do an example of how the level of the fit can apply for both of you. How you can see how it works on both sides of the table with regards to pushing the opponents about. Okay. It's really good fun, I promise you. So let's say we are West with those cards. A nice heart suit, a decent hand. South opens a club. So we're happy to overcall, aren't we? Now there's one thing I've probably failed to mention. If you can bid at the 1 level, you do so. So here we have enough points to bid 2 hearts, don't we? But we could still bid 1 heart. So both of those could be true. We use a jump to 2 hearts as something else, so you'll just have to take my word for it, the 1 heart is the correct bid. But that goes against the theory of messing them up. If you bid 2 hearts, that takes away more room, doesn't it? There's a different style hand we use for a jump to 2 hearts, which I'll talk about in the future. But you just have to take my word for it. If you can bid at the 1 level, you do so, allowing more room for your partners to support you. But there is a reason why we use 2 hearts for something else. So we should bid 1 heart with this hand. Let's say North bids 1 spade, and our partner bids 2 hearts. Something that is incredibly important, you realise, is that our partner has promised us how many points for that bid?
10.
Haha, caught you. You weren't getting it. They have supported us. So how many hearts do they have?
4.
2.
3.
If they knew we had 6,
2.
then they would have 2. However, they don't know we have 6. They only know we have 5, don't they? So they think, from their perspective, we, as a team, have 8 hearts. And we've promised them 5, which means they should have 3. However, I've told you do level of the fit on any number of points, correct? So therefore, how many points could they theoretically have?
No.
They might have none, might they? So when your partner is supporting you, they are not promising you points, they are simply promising you trumps. They're promising us that they have 3 trumps to go with our 5. Now I know we actually have 6, but our partner is of the opinion we have 5 or more. So they promised us 3 cards in hearts, but not necessarily any points. It's very important you understand their bid is also aggressive in nature. It isn't promising you a good hand, it's promising you trump support. They like the fact you have 5 or more hearts, okay? Right, let's say South bids 2 spades. What's the actual level of the fit? How many hearts do we actually have as a team together? 9. They promised us 3, and they bid 2 hearts, the 8 trick level, on the assumption that we have 8 cards in hearts between us. They are wrong. We have 9 cards in hearts. The reason being, we have an extra heart. They didn't know we had 6 hearts, did they?
No.
So therefore, we should bid 3 hearts. This does not show a better hand. This shows more hearts. It's all about the trump length. It's not about hand quality. And if I take away the ace of diamonds, your bidding should be the same, because your trump length has not decreased. If I give us the ace of diamonds and instead take away a heart, we should now pass over 2 spades because we have reached our level of the fit. You bid to the level of the fit as soon as you can and you respect it. It is what it is. Okay, you can stretch every now and again if you want to, but the level of the fit says that is where you should place yourself. So if you place yourself here, it's likely to lead to bad things. If you place yourself here, you've not been aggressive enough. Okay? So it's about your trump length. Notice how this hand is better than the hand with 6 hearts that was weak. But the fact of the matter is that we had a 6th heart meant that we could bid 3 hearts. Do you see? So both sides can apply this level of the fit theory. They have assumed you have 5. If you have 6, you can bid 1 more later.
Have you forced South to do anything more aggressive than they probably would have done?
They might not have bid 2 spades, but they probably would have. If they had supported with 3 hearts, it might well be that South wanted to bid 2 spades and now is forced into doing that. That's where you really win as an overcaller. If you can stymie the opener from getting their second bid, you've basically bought the contract. Again, doesn't matter if you make it, because you've stopped them, you've robbed them from the opportunity of communicating. And what sometimes happens is South goes, well, I was going to bid 2 spades, so now I'll bid 3 spades because I don't want to pass. And then North goes, ooh, 3 spades, you've got 16 plus points, that's good. 4 spades, 2 off. Okay? So doing this really damages their communication lines, and that's what overcalling is all about. And what you will find is the more and more competitive bridge you play, the more and more of this the opponents do. Okay? There is a way to deal with it, but tonight we are on the baddies side, if you will. We're on the messing everyone around. Hopefully you will realise in playing the hands how much this upsets your bidding, because you're used to this. If you like, you've had a free run so far, doing this and doing that, and suddenly these guys are going to start saying things and your bid might not actually be allowed because it's not sufficient. Okay?